Yeah, but it's all right. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. Go on. Tell me. Hmm. Oh, do you want to do it on Discord? We can do that on it definitely. Shall we do it there right now? Do you want to switch? Since we're settled here, it's all right. But it will just take 1 second to switch. So if you are having any problem, then tell me. We can switch. Yeah. Hello. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, today we're gonna be studying. Phew, I don't know. Thinking in systems once again, man. Thinking in systems once again. A lot of it is really, really hard. And I think the last time I did, I reached about a um. We kind of like reached the part where they were talking about like how behavior starts to emerge, right? We are less likely to be surprised if we can see how events accumulate into dynamic patterns of behavior. The team is now winning streak. Like so as you know, the series is about understanding systems and reality and things like that. So yeah, and there's a lot that can be said about all this kind of stuff, but I think we're officially live, right? And okay, let me just put this aside. This bad boy. behavior of a system is its performance over time, its growth, stagnation, decline, oscillation, right? Or evolution. In the historical events, we would have a better behavioral level understanding, which is deeper than. Okay, let me just quickly start the noise cancellation because like that's just more efficient way to study how you can use this website. Really good, especially this song. Right, and I already have a preset for it. That's kind of awesome. Let's just do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. The noise isn't good because I'm on a call right now, so that's why it's not gonna work out that efficiently for some reason. All right, but that's kind of all right because who cares about that? I can just study. The behavior of a system is its performance with its growth. Like yeah, we already got that. The key understanding is not just what is happening, but why. Because and this is why feedback loops allows us to actually perceive what's happening and why what's happening is happening the way it is happening. Because a lot of time we see in reality like how all of that function. The structure of a system is its interlocking stock flows and feedback loops. We already got the stock, we already got the flows, we already got the feedback. Right, and we also got the delay. So I think we have four concepts already integrated into our thing. So shall we just change that to four? So we've got for concept, right? So we have stocks, and stock creates flows. Flows creates feedback, and feedback takes time to happen or something. So that kind of like causes delay. The diagram with the box and arrows. My students call them spaghetti and metaball diagrams of system structure. Structure determines what behavior are latent in the system. That means, like, yeah, a goal seeking balancing feedback loop approaches or holds a dynamic equilibrium reinforcing generates exponential growth. Two of them linked together are capable of growth, decay, and equilibrium. Capable, not capital. If they also contain delays, they may produce oscillations. If they work in periodic rapid bursts, also contain delay, they may produce oscillation. If they work in periodic rapid bursts, they may produce even more surprising behavior. System thinking goes back and forth consistently between structure and diagrams of stock. I mean, the thing is, like, this chapter, she's just kind of like bullshitting. I mean, first of all, she started with hierarchy, resilience, why system surprises, and self-organization, and that she just bullshitted about a couple of things, which wasn't really that awesome. But I think like why systems work so well is because of these three things. But like how, like explain to me, like for example, resilience is having multiple ways to satisfy a feedback loop. Self-organization is how you actually organize in such a way that maintaining feedback loops become really efficient. And then you have hierarchies. What kind of feedback loop must be maintained at all costs? All right, and then so you have these different kind of structures about maintaining feedback loops emerging, and then you why systems are prices because systems happen to be complex, and all the things that you're trying to represent are simple model of it, which is not the real model of the reality in itself. But okay, where is my where is the math here, man? Finally we're getting. Oh, are we increasing the complexity? I mean, we're still getting back. Okay. But oh yeah, I think right now we're gonna increase complexity because a lot of time in simple or if not complex systems, a lot like complexity kind of like explodes. Let me just get that fixed. And that explosion of complexity, guys, is kind of a hard, right? So I'm in a call with my girlfriend too, but both of us are just studying, so no one is speaking to each other. And I just muted myself. Can't let her know I'm streaming while I'm being a call with her, but yeah. I mean, kind of makes sense. All right. I mean, like, yeah, both of us are muted because both of us are studying, I suppose. But yeah, that is all right. Yeah, I could change the camera of the screen to my face or something a lot of time when I'm doing these kind of stuff. But it's all right, I guess. Yeah. So we like, yeah, layers of units. But I think we are finally gonna get into some juicy stuff because, like, for example, I think that was juicy stuff too. Like the concept of like this concept in Danila talked about, like, self-organization, resilience, why system works so well. But it just happened to be that I've read a couple of books from Anti-Fragile and different Anti-Fragility by Nicholas Taleb and different stuff like that. So this kind of chapter wasn't really good for me. But if you are a normal person, I think it must have interested you a lot. So yeah, it's just that sometimes what you've read actually overlap with what you're currently reading. That's just all there is to here. So we were here, right? If they also contain dealers, they may produce oscillation. If they work in periodic, produce even more surprising behavior. Yes. And the behavior time graphs. So you're trying to create a behavior because of using that, and I think that is just a simplified version, a model that isn't probably true in the most cases between the and really silky and even and the oscillation behavior and mechanical. Yeah, I think that's kind of true, but I think they try to model it through a graph. And today I'm gonna get to have my Xpin. So what does that mean for us is that I would be able to. Okay, wait a sec. Is it not highlighting? What? So I would be able to draw really easily here for some reason. Like, yeah, so we can. Yeah, it would become really easy to. Yeah, so if we have yeah, the drawing would become easy. Right now it's really hard, but once you got the Xpen and stuff. And the best part about Xpen is that can we use like a mouse, so I can even use it to like do the mouse kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of cool. Let's just see system thinkers. Like, yeah, we got that. Huh. Simple explanation, like Slinky make this even behavior structure to distinction same option and obvious. In fact, much analysis in the world goes no deeper than events. Listen to every night explanation of why the stock market did what it is. Stock went up because the US dollar fell, or the prime interest rate rose. China won, lost, or one country invaded another, or did an event analysis. These explanations give you no ability to predict what will happen tomorrow. They give you no ability to change the behavior of a system, make it less volatile, to make a more reliable indicator of the health of the corporation, or a better vehicle to encourage investment or instance. Analysis goes one level deeper to behavior over time. Eco- econometric models strive to find the statistical links among present output, whatever, often in complicated equations, right? But I think unnecessary complexity doesn't allow you to do anything with it because you cannot represent the entirety of an economy using a mathematical equation. Simple as that. These behavior based models are more useful than even based one because they still have fundamental. First, they typically overemphasize system flow in the stocks because that's where the interesting variations and most rapid changing of the system show up. Economy, even the national production of goods and services, the GNP, rather than the total physical stock of the nation factory, the farms, and the businesses that produce those goods. But without seeing how stock affects their related flows through feedback processes, one cannot understand the dynamic of economic systems or the reason they behave. Second, and more seriously, in trying to find out statistical link. So now it's telling why a lot of economists are trying to achieve something that is impossible scientifically. Oh my gosh. And I think that's happened with everyone. Of like one day you come up with the field that tells you everything that you understood or trying to do is wrong. We've seen this in religion too, right? I mean, a lot of time when you believe something that is true or kind of true, turns out that there's nothing like that at all because of some laws of physics that denies what you believe in, right? So we know some laws of systems thinking, I suppose, right? Uh-huh. goes up and down and off and all sort of combination in response to stock, not to other flows. Let me use a simple example to explain what I mean. Suppose you know nothing at all about thermostat. I mean, there's some background noise, guys. Slightly. It's just a minute. My mom's cooking downstairs. This is what I call Creativity Pro Max because what I achieved with this is I covered my earphones from which I was listening with the headphone. Damn. Okay. Okay. Fuck. The earphone's gonna fall down. This was one of the most stupidest and creative ideas I ever had to cover the fucking. Okay, wait a sec. Let's see if we can do it. Probably not the best, but probably also not the worst. Right? And the headphones have A and C, so I can get that activated. So there's no reason to expect any flow to be a stable relationship to other flow, which is kind of true because every flow or stock is trying to maintain itself through their own feedback loops and how okay in all sorts of come in response to stock, not to other flows. I think we kind of have to see like from the stock centric perspective, not from the like we tend to think in terms of flow, but we need to think in terms of stock. Like how does this thing influences itself? It's like how do you think that this kiddo right here would influence itself? Right? I mean, that is the entire game, right? How does this thing influences itself? Okay, can I not make the structure that I want to make? But okay, that's alright too. But it's like if I were to draw it, it's like how does this thing, which is like I still didn't got the pen, so man, how does this thing comes and goes on to influence itself? This is what the majority of the stuff is about because like it's that's the exact thing, right? Because stocks are the one at the center, but you're trying to maintain a stock. You're not maintaining a flow. A flow is what happens when the stock decreases because of the disturbances in the circumstances, or the stock increases. For example, you burn energy and you can't stop that. That's why you must constantly eat. You try to maintain energy levels, which is your probably like calories or something. So that is like the calories that you eat in a day, which is the calories or the fat that you have in the body. So it's like you're trying to maintain that because there's always just happen to be that one fucking flow that just keeps on messing this up. So there's constantly an outflow. That's mean you must constantly create a new inflow because if you don't, you'll run out of energy, and if you run out of energy, you're pretty much dead. Okay, that was so wrong, but you got the stuff right. Yeah, so it's like you need to understand from the stocks dynamics rather than understanding from the right. And I didn't show anything that was I was showing on my screen because I'm fucking stupid. But this is what I draw. So it's like how a stock influences itself, how there's flow that's constantly making the something to come out of the structure or something, and how they constantly try to manage themselves. Because I just was showing my face, I forgot to show the screen. But you get the gist, right? Let me use a simple example to explain what I mean. Suppose you know nothing all about thermostat. In response to stock, yeah, people try to maintain stock, not the flow. They want to maintain a stock or they want to increase a stock. Let's say increase, like, yeah, because as soon as you start seeing all of this, in fact, all of this, let's say this is your bank account, right? You try to create a business and you scale that business, not because you love to scale, not because you want more machine, not because there's a bank account and you want that bank account to grow, and if it grows, you invest more, which makes it decrease, but then it increases more of the money you have in the long run, which makes you invest more, which decreases your, the amount of money you have in the short terms, which increases the money in the long run again and again, right? So it's like, and then you may invest more, which increase more, and something like this dynamic again and again going on and on and on. You see, but what you're trying to do is like you're increasing like the capital stock, which is increasing and decreasing over the capital of machines and different stuff like that. So we have that, right? We have like, let's just draw something for now. Wait. Let's just draw a realistic graph, right? So we have that, and we're trying to maintain this. What we're trying to do is like we're trying to increase the inflow into this, because the more it is, we're trying to increase, if not just maintain, the amount of stocks we have. And by doing so, we increase other stocks. That's what they're talking about. Suppose you know nothing all about thermostats, but you had a lot of data about the past heat flows into equation telling you how the flows have varied through the past because under ordinary circumstances window or improves the insulation or turns the furnace or forgets to order oil. You could predict tomorrow room temperature without didn't change or break down, but if you were to ask to make the room warmer, or if the room temperature suddenly started plummeting and you had to fix it, if you wanted to produce the same room temperature with a lower fuel bill, your behavioral analysis wouldn't help you. You would dig into the exactly. So it's like creating an equation out of it. There's like, yeah, this is why behavior based centric models are pretty good at predicting the near-term performance of an economy, quite bad at predicting long-term performance, terrible at telling one how to improve the performance of the economy. Oh my gosh, I see. And that's the one reason why systems of all kinds surprise us. We are too fascinated by the events they generate. We pay too little attention to their history. And we are insufficiently skilled at seeing in their history clues to the structure from which behavior events flows. I mean, okay, she is still in the call, right? Let me quickly, guys, let me just do and check something. There's one friend I'm on the call with. Yep, they're still in call. Yeah. So let's come back to the topic. So yeah. The one reason why all kinds of surprise weird fascinating by events degenerate, we pay too little to the history and be insufficiently skilled at seeing in their history clues to the structure from which the behavior flows. Linear mind in a non-linear algorithm really are easy to think about. The more the merrier. Linear equations are solvable, which makes them suitable for textbook. Linear systems have important modular virtue. You can take apart, put them together again. The pieces that non-linear system generally cannot be solved or cannot be added to. Non-linearity means that the act of the playing has way of changing the rules. The twisted changeability makes nonlinearity hard to calculate, but it also creates a rich kind of behavior that never occur in a linear system. Okay, what are linear and non-linear system? I think we have to do ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to actually tell us like a little bit about this. Okay, ChatGPT, what is a linear and a non-linear system? Like an example of it. We are discussing that in like thinking a system, and Donella kind of like mentions it. Donella from. It's not Donella. It's Donella. Right? It hallucinated. System is the one where a change in input produces a proportional change in double the cost, double the effect. Simple predicted data. Imagine 10 weights a day, 20 weights is proportional. Drive 20 km for 2 hours equals one twice the time, twice the distance. Nothing graphically. It looks like a straight line. This is where small causes can create and huge causes can create tiny effect. The relation is not proportional. Double the input does not necessarily mean double the output. Epidemic, suppose one person affected 2, 2 affected 4, 4 infected 8, 1632. A tiny change in the beginning explodes with a massive outcome. This is non-linear. The compound interest you have year 1, year 2, huge increase, enormous increase. The same interest rate producing increase in large growth feedbacks on the previous growth. Non-linear. Human relation. Suppose you insult someone once. Twice, still okay. 10 times selling the relationship ends. The effect is not proportional. There was a threshold, non-linear. I see. It was like a threshold, right? You leave someone once, you leave someone twice, you leave someone thrice, you leave someone 4 times, and something, and maybe they're just desperate, and maybe you love them 10 times, and they're still desperate, and nothing happens, but there's someone else out there, and you leave them one time, and they're just gone. Right? It's not like yeah. Different people have different predictive model and they come to different conclusions from the same events, and from those different conclusions they have a different sense of self, different sense of pride, different set of idea of who they are. And trust me, all of those different sense of beliefs kind of like makes them act differently. If I push you twice, you'll get twice there, but really you push twice as hard and get 10 times there and get nothing. Habits, learning, wealth accumulation, all are heavily non-linear. A useful mental model. Pushing the boulder up, and nothing happened, and then suddenly it rolls it over the peak and races downhill. The insight sits at the heart of the system. The behavior of the whole system is often very different from the simple cause effect predicts. Yep. And it's not Donella. It's not Donella. Fuck. It's Donella. I wonder what kind of. Ah, I do remember. Fuck this. Fuck this shit. Right. And mining capital stock delays. Here it is, my babe. Sorry for that. Yeah. And right now, Danella is talking about like ah, my gain was pretty low. Now it's unnecessarily high. So the gains were pretty low. That's why it was having a hard time listening to what I was saying. That's why gains matter a lot. And when you come closer like this, it just helps the to work efficiently. That's why I said it. Right. Okay. Damn, I should actually make my mic slightly closer to me. I think that's have a lot of improvement for all of you guys too. If it's closer to my mouth or something, because like you can hear me more efficiently, right? But this is now too close. I mean, it's like it's even closer than my girlfriend, so right, yeah. Linear and non-linear systems, and yeah, could you explain that in a short answer? Linear, non-linear. Small fires and then suddenly one catastrophically a population grows and then explodes. The market seems stable, then crashes. Most important railway systems are non-linear. No, I pushed it 10 times. When 10, the result sometimes completely different. Non-linear consists appendix responses. That's because non-linear systems are dominant in reality, not because the reality favors non-linear systems or something. Oh no, reality is just made up of non-linear systems, I suppose, because of how transitions, a state transition reinforcing themselves and forming a stable attractor or something like that. Nature of a relationship. A linear between two elements in a system can be drawn or graph at the straight line. Yeah. It's like a relation with constant proportion. If I put 10 pounds of fertilizer on my feet, the yield will go up by 2 bushels. If I put 20 pounds, the yield will go. If I put 30 pounds, the yield would go by 6 bushels or whatever you call it. Unlinear relation is one that which does not produce a proportional effect, which is true. Let's say after 30 pounds, the soil doesn't have much ability to actually absorb the nutrients or something. So what happened is like even no matter how much fertilizer you add, no extra amount of like bushels grow. And now, if you reach a certain threshold, like maybe you actually add 50 pounds, it kind of deteriorates the bushel because it's like there's just too much fertilizer there, and the plant doesn't know how to make sense of it. So so it's like how it's not like you increase actually like linear relationships happens in the straight line. It's like how at the start, if you increase, like let's say if you give 10 pounds of like uh, fertilizer, it would give about like 6 or 7 extra bushels. But as you add on, it's just like doesn't add up, and yeah, and if you after some point, if you just keep on adding, it's just like decreases to some degree like this, right? And then maintains itself. So after this point, if you just keep on adding, so it's like this is the position where you get the maximum gains. So I think like, or this is the position where you get the least investment, the highest return, right? So if you want to go for the maximum gain, you have to actually push this, add like a slightly more fertilizer. So actually you gonna get the, but at this point, like when you're here, it's like most, like it's the maximum return on the money invested, right? So it's like, yeah, that's why I can buy a professional. Oh my gosh, like let's just remember this, and this explains a lot of stuff about reality. I mean, I can buy a professional uh Xpen, right? I mean, what Xpen is just like a board on which you write and it gets connected to your screen really easily. So now, rather than I'm currently using my mouse, if you can see it, I can show it up. I'm currently using my mouse to draw all of this, but then I'll use an Xpen. It's like a tablet connected to the screen, and then you can kind of like draw some crazy stuff with it, which is kind of cool. Right, so I'll use that to draw it, but it's like after at the start, like the price ranges for that was somewhere. If you want something just that works fine or something that works for like good, it's like 2,000, like which is somewhat around how many dollars? $1 is about 90, $10, so 20, $25. So like the it was $25, right? So it was $25, the cheapest one, but it worked pretty fine because I just needed to draw because I do not need to do drawing. But if I wanna get something like something that works for last longer, has a good build quality and stuff like that, for that I need to actually, so at the starting $25, if you have the money, and here's if you were to like map the returns. Here we have returns, and here we have money, like a return on money, right? So returns rises a lot, like at the starting 2000, because like it just like gives you a lot of things, right? Because right now this drawing that I'm doing right now is kind of hard to do and maintain and sustain, right? I mean, we did draw this too here, if you remember the reality map that we did kind of created. Man, this looks really beautiful though. Right, so it does happen, but after some time, it kind of like plateaus really hard, because now let's say, okay, why does it plateau? It plateaus for two conditions. First, I do not want to draw, so even a cheap ass one works. Why do you say, okay, I'm not an artist, I just want to draw these kind of stuff, like literally these kind of random stuff. I just want to do these. So this doesn't require an expensive product to do, because this is just lines and graphs and stuff like that. So that's why it's. But if you are an artist, the return on money would be really really low. Only after, let's say, you increase this threshold. So let's say, I don't know, 50, or maybe like 50 is just really less, about $100, I suppose. 100 to about $100 at minimum, but between $2,000. That's when you get the maximum return for an artist, because like the pressure quality, the sensitivity, the software involved, the servers, the driver, everything is really. But after this, there's not much gain for the artist too. Like it plateaus really hard. So you see what I'm saying, right? So it kind of like, for an artist, what I'm buying is really really not like good, and it kind of like gets non-underlined results, and after this it plateaus. So this is like the return on money graph for an artist who want to draw, but this is like the return on money graph, and it comes like, you can spend a lot less amount of money, like a lot less amount of money, like just this much amount of money to get this much amount of results, right? Yeah. So if I increase the money, right, so it should be like, yeah. And here you have to invest a lot amount of money, like a lot amount of money to actually get the same result, because like the condition these actually system is this system A and system B is used for are different. See, and this is what Danella is saying. It's non-linear. It doesn't stay stable. It's not like more money. It's not more money equals better. Like after some time, it's not. It's not like that. It's not more money. It's not like that. It's literally not like that. More money is not always better. Sometimes spending just about $25, right? And I didn't spend 25. I spent about $35. Like, yeah. So that was the price for I bought. And this is like, after this, there's extremely diminishing return. In fact, 35 is already where you start to have diminishing returns. Like 35, you should say 35 somewhere. Like, yeah, I would have some diminishing returns. And the best is like to buy at $25 to $30. But yeah, I still bought the better one because I could, first of all, and second, yeah, it just looked better than the like, yeah, aesthetics. Yeah, but aesthetics are not the major thing here, if you know. And it like, yeah. So this is the thing that happens a lot of time with the systems, man. The one which the cause does not produce a proportional effect. Love Wiggles, not with a straight line. If I put 100 pounds in a photo of 100 pounds of fertilizer on, my yield will go up by 10 bushels. If I put it by not go away, if I put the yield, why? Because I'm damaging my solid too much of a good thing. All this full of non-linearities. Nail it. I didn't even read the next paragraph, but I actually created the exact same example, bitch. So the world often surprises our linear thinking minds. If you have learned that a small push produces a smaller response, we think that twice as big a push will produce twice as big. And twice as big but produce one-sixth of the response. Or no response at all. Here are some examples of nonlinearities. As the flow of a traffic on a highway increases, the car speed is affected only slightly over a larger range of car distance. Oh, sorry. Mm-hmm. Can produce for a long time without much. Usually can produce for a long time without much effect on crop yield until it's worn down to the depth of to implement a little tasteful advertising. Discussed for a product. Yep. Pretty surprises they fool the reasonable expectation that if a little of some cure did a little good. Pretty surprises they fool the reasonable expectations that if a little of some. They're even more important because they change the relative strength of. Yep. Damn, this is the entire thing, right? Mm-hmm. Feel like talking, right? Wait a sec, guys. Hmm. I think this is my peak focus, but with about 5 hours of sleep, damn, I'm getting used to sleeping trash nights, honestly, which I shouldn't get used to. They can flip a system from one mode to another, and of the nonlinearities are the chief cause of shifting dominance that characterize several of the systems into. They get caused by dominating reset and then decline caused by subtle dominating balancing. But warm. Okay. And pesticides. The tree ring record shows that the monk have been exposed and fit trees periodically for the last 400 years. Until this century, no one much cared. Okay, I think I did a mistake with my charger here down there because I kind of like have it up here, so it kind of like interfering with my leg. Let me just fix that in a sec. It's not a big thing to fix. Yeah, at this point we should discuss why it's so hard to found or find linear systems, right? Or something like that. The valuable tree for the lumber industry was a white pine, which infant was considered weed species. Eventually, however, the sense of fortune turned to spruce, and first suddenly the bubble was seen as a serious pest. Was the white pine? Ah, of the virgin pine were gone. And spruce control the spruce bubble resurgence. Annual sprays were continued through 90. TT was banned. The sprains were no longer thought to be ultimate answer to the bubble problem. Said one that all the forest management wants to preserve the trees. For them, by 1980, spraying costs were getting unmanageable. Spend 12.5 on bed home control that year. Concerned citizens were objecting to change of the landscape with poisons, and in spite of spraying of trees, 20 of the University of British Columbia and get a whole system look at a bubble problem. They discovered that before the spraying began, the bubble had been barely detectable in most trees. A number of predicted, including birds, a spider, vast in several diseases. Every few decades, however, there was 10 years, and the budworm's population would eventually to explode again. Most common tree in the northern forest, left to its own, it would crowd out spruce and rank. Nothing but fear. Each budworm outbreak cuts back the fir population. For spruce and brick, eventually fir moves back in. As the fir builds up, the probability of the outbreak increases non-linearly. The reproductive budworm increases more than the proportionally to the availability of its food supply. The final trigger is 2 or 3 wounds. Dry perfect for survival for budworm larva. If you are doing, you'll blame the outburst on the worm. Right, the budworm population grows too great for its natural enemies to hold it in check. A range of conditions, greater budworm population results in more revenue on budworm predators. Beyond some of the predators can multiply no faster. More wood while faster predator becomes a non-linear relationship. More the budworm takes off unimpeded. Now only one thing can stop the outbreak: the insect reducing its own food supply by killing off its weeds. Finally, if the woodworm population crashes non-linearly, the reinforcing roof of budworm reduction yields dominance to the balance of budworm starvation, spruce and brick, and the cycle begins again. The fair system oscillates over a decade, but it's an ecological stable within bounds. It can go on forever. The main effect of the budworm is to allow the budworm full skills, but ecological system it can go forever. The main effect of the budworm is to allow tree species other than fits persist. And this which is unstable, but what is ecologically stable is economically unstable. Economy is almost completely dependent on logging industry, which is dependent on stable, steady supply of fir and spruce. Spruce, when industry sprays in society, it shifts the whole system to bounce uneasily in the different points. Relationships, it kills off not only the pest, but the natural enemies of the pest, thereby weakening the feedback loop that normalize, keeps the budworm, it keeps the fir high, moving the budworms up their nonlinear production curve to point at which their nation explosion. The forest management practices have set up the conditions over larger and larger areas, the managers have found themselves logged into a policy in which there's an such that if the policy fails, there would be an outbreak of an intensity that has never been seen before. I think we see the fundamental misconception embedded in the public terms side effects. This phrase means roughly effects, which I haven't. Source of system surprise. Stand for beginning and ends of. They are being ignored at the moment for the purposes of simplifying the present. Them rarely have a real boundary. Everything, as they say, is connected to everything else and not legally. There is no clear determinable boundary between the sea and the land, between the sociology and the anthropology. And you knows there are only boundaries of word, thought, perception, and social agreement, artificial mental model boundaries. Complexity arises exactly at the boundaries. There are cruisers of the German side of the border, there's Germans of the. Which I already agree if you say, oh, she said such an important or such a nice line, but I already know there's no literal boundaries. Every straight transition is just, like, related, interconnected. Of the border and the Germans on the Swedish side of the border. The greatest complexities arise exactly at the boundaries. And German on the Kazakh side of border, forest species extend beyond the edge of the forest into the field. Field species penetrate pathway into the forest. Disorderly mixed up boundaries are a source of diversity and creativity, and our systems do, for instance, as coming from a cloud. Of course, the cars don't come from a cloud; they come from raw material with help of capital, labor, energy, technology, and when this means the means of production. Similarly, the flow of cars out of goes not to a cloud but through sales of a household or business. And whether these stocks are likely to have significant influence on the behavior of the system over the time period of interest, which is kind of true. If the consumer is not consuming because the technology you're applying, so either you should actually improve the technology of the production for the stock in a car inventory, or you should decrease the inventory, or you should improve the inventory, or you should increase advertisement. A lot of is dependent on consumer behavior, and then a lot of things that are inventory is dependent onto like technology and the production quality, right? So it's like how production quality influences consumer behaviors, and how design influences consumer behaviors, and how that behavior, the consumer behavior changes the behavior of the system that it was even driving the consumer behavior in the first place. So it's like how one system is trying to keep uncertainty in bounds, how other system constantly spikes it. And by doing so, it reduces uncertainty by reducing uncertainty for someone else. It's like it reduces its own uncertainty by doing it for someone or reducing it for someone else. And thus creates this interdependence. Where reducing your uncertainty or your problems would actually reduce my uncertainty and my problems, kind of like reciprocity. Yeah, man, I'm kind of underestimated, right? Yeah. Oh, I realized just something just right now. I mean, yeah. Just checking my stomach. Nothing else, guys. Do you think I'm a poet? Maybe I am. Hoo hoo ha. Of course, I'm not. But kind of fun saying that. I'll take a break of 5 minutes, guys. Just a break. Guess who's back? Your daddy's back, or something. But yeah, if you go back to what we were having here, so yeah, the greatest complexities arise. I just want to check one thing, right, guys, real quick, real quick. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. So yeah, so we had like the greatest complexities arise exactly in the boundaries, like yeah. So whether the important is to keep track of raw materials and consumer house stock, whether it's still yeah influences, right? Hmm. But if there are materials, wait a sec again. Yeah, so behavior of a system over time period of interest. If the raw materials are guaranteed to be abundant and consumer continue to demand the products, then clouds will do. Clouds will be material shortage or product goals, or if we drew a mental boundary around a product that did not include these scores, then we would be surprised by future events, right? The boundary can be expanded further. Processed raw materials come from chemical plants, smelters, or refiners whose input comes ultimately from the earth. Processing creates not only product but also employment, wages, profits, and population. Employment, wages, profits, and population discarded a consumer stack goes to the landfill centuries or recycle centers. So it goes to the landfill from which they go on to have further effects in society and the environment. And recycles into moves material back into the production. Mine to dump, or as interesting call it, from cattle to grave, depend on who wants to know for what purpose over how long. Important, and as physical economy grows and society ecological footprints expand, is increasingly coming to be the short terms. The long term is increasingly coming to be short term, with suddenness that has been surprising for people who's been some of the business garbage is going away. Sort of a cloud source of raw materials might surprising suddenness too. If you know, with a long term time horizon, comes are not the end of the story. The great ecological cycle of keep moving materials around, opening and closing seas, raising up and getting down mountains. Everything put in a dump will end up on the top of a mountain or under sea. Others of metals and fuels will form on planet Earth. There is no system clouds, no ultimate boundaries, even real clouds in the sky. So everything physical comes from somewhere. Everything goes somewhere. Keeps moving. metaphysical force anger literally comes out of the cloud. It does love anything we have to simplify, which means we have to make boundaries. It's usually not a problem. I'll be back in a minute from the washroom. I realize it's always like, some withdrawal effects that makes other people more desperate or in need for you. It's like when they don't, or when you get so used to them and when they're not around you consistently or repeatedly, is that you having withdrawal symptoms or something. So kind of like how like but it's like how hard it is sometimes to model. It's easy to model markets, it's easy to model labors, but when we get into abstract things like relationships, love, sex, right, or sexual desires, or like how do you model abstract things like, let's say, relationships, because you might find out the least dominant variables. I mean, like the variables that matters the most. Like how? Like, is there even a way? Or I mean, some things just can't be modeled, right? Something just can't be modeled. But is that conclusion even correct? ChatGPT, could you tell me, like, how do you model abstract things? I mean, it's so easy to actually model an economy, to not exactly an economy, but factories, the companies, the cars, the production, the goods, like not, like because you can actually create a diagram out of it. You can actually understand, okay, if this is like increasing, of let's say the fuel is increasing, and then we have more stock equals more labor equals more increase in production, more increase in production means even more capital, even more labor, even more production, and then again at one time the stock declines heavily, then non-linear growth. And when it comes to production, so now stock, which is like the fuel, declines non-linearly, like but the capital increases also non-linearly, and after time there's a bottleneck, or there's like it plateaus suddenly out of nowhere. So yeah, it's so easy to model the system, but if you were to try to model a human relationship, how would you fucking model it? For that, you need to actually reduce everything to the most dominant variables that are influencing the behavior. But how do you even do that in the first place? And what are the most dominant variables in the first place? That's another thing. And am I even looking at it in the right way to begin with? Those are neglect, I suppose. Yeah, that's thing too. It's like, because if you, yeah, trust accumulates. Hmm. It's like how you're actually accumulating it, how you're making someone feel like that you trust them or they trust you, or both of the party. Trust to play, but then again, rather than doing that, what you're trying to do is like you're trying to actually maintain control. Maintaining a control in a relationship and forming a deep relationship are kind of two different things. You can have control, but I mean, one of the most important part I think that people don't realize is that okay, control doesn't necessarily lead to a good relationship, right? Non-linear than individual to industrial systems. The factory might get huge effect. That's non-linearity, because values differ, because understanding differ, because perception differs. That means straight transition that happens are catastrophically non-linear. Damn, it's too non-linear. That's why finding out exactly. But then again, you cannot model them, because every system is trying to reduce uncertainty in a way. The only way that it's modeled is how much uncertainty have you reduced for them or something. Like how successfully do you reduce uncertainty for them, and how much experience and understanding in topics you've actually accumulated. So it's like, for example, if you have a girlfriend, both of you have understanding of physics, right? And if you both if you talk about physics a lot more, what it kind of like does, it's like it creates shared experiences, which create a shared mental model, which creates exchange of information, which reduce informative asymmetry in one section. Once again, there's biological uncertainty about not having a tribe, especially if you don't have a tribe. So you reduce that, which I do, and it's like, okay, like what kind of, and then there's like, like sexual uncertainty is like finding a reproductive partner. So at first you solve the tribe problem, you solve the sexual reproductive problem, right? And then let's say if you solve the informative problem, because people do want to talk about the things they're learning, and all the different kind of things they're thinking about. So you also solve that for them, right? Dominant variable. You don't start by finding, you start by observing. We actually would approve of this. Look for persistent feedback looking constraints. For example, relation someone has eventually collapsed after expectation, right? The dominant variable might not be communication. It may be expectation. It might be keep failing after rabbit cross. Coordination complexity. The more important the variable is, usually one. If change would alter the system behavior the most. The smallest set that influences maximum amount of behavior is evolutionary incentive shaping a reduction of uncertainty. Yeah, from Carl Friston free energy principle. I think this is it. This is the smallest set of like uncertainty. How much uncertainty does having or being with an organism gets reduced until multiple specific domains and everything becomes an outflow and inflow to maintain that level of uncertainty or certainty, right? ChatGPT come across its own kind of like perspective, and I think it's kind of like hallucinated a little. You're not gonna sugarcoat this, but yeah, it's kind of true. How much uncertainty can a system can actually, yeah, convey trust. There's so many different kind of stuff and variables that kind of play a big role into, guys, shaping how everything functions in a relationship, because complexity explodes because the ways a system try to reduce uncertainty is kind of really complex. Like multiple people can reduce uncertainty about the same state in rarely multiple ways. And if how does a relationship help you to reduce uncertainty about specific things? If someone is not into money, and if you reduce uncertainty related to that concept, nothing happens, right? I mean, yeah, something like that. That's another thing. Problem rarely coincides with the boundary of an academic discipline or with the political boundary. Rivers make handy bridge between countries with the worst possible borders for rivers make handy borders for managing the quantity and the quality of water. Air is worse than water, and it's crossing political borders. National borders mean nothing when it comes to depletion in the stratosphere or greenhouse gas. And then you have to push back because you can't allow the uncertainty to rise. It's like how a system tries to reduce uncertainty about other systems or certain specific things, but how that obsession to reduce uncertainty spikes uncertainty because they realized that another system was deceiving them. This happens in a relationship all the time, right? That's another thing too. Like how you try to find out secrets about the people, but they have lied to you and they don't want you to find out the secrets, not because they hate you or dislike you, it's just that fear of what will happen to them are having the relationship and they do find out the secrets, and their desire to know more about someone because you genuinely love them causes you to not love them because you find out that they are not predictable anymore, you do not trust them anymore or something with whatever they say or with the information they give. ChatGPT, I'm reading what Danila has to say about like the part two system and us, but I guess she's talking about how like we should think not in terms of boundaries and how a lot of different variables kind of like influences behavior. And the best part is I already know all that. I fucking believe in determinism. What the hell are you talking about, woman? But and all the different kind of stuff that she's trying to convey. Like, okay, I do not know should I skip the chapter or not. I think I should skip the chapter. I mean, it's like being repetitive at this point. But I mean, there were some important parts here and there, but I think I just have to push it through, I guess. Right. Yeah, I got no choice, but I just have to push it through. But because it's like it's getting a lot theory, I wanted her to introduce something like feedback, stock delays, and something like that you did at the start, which was like mind blowing. I want like when did the like yeah, there's fifth section too, which talks about like the system traps and opportunities, I suppose. Like like yeah, when she actually stalks something like start talking about something that is kind of like beyond our mind fucking like when there's like another concept because we like I want a concept not like her jargon or her beliefs like when she even talked about the resilient self-organization or hierarchy. I think at that time like yeah she's also correct about how systems have multiple ways to actually maintain feedback loop. That's what gives them resilience, how they organize, how they kind of like realize what they need to do to to reduce or maintain a stock level in certain like in certain bounds, like so reduce uncertainty about the stock and how they organize in order to achieve that. And then she talked about hierarchies, like how maintaining some stock is more important than maintaining other stocks, right? But then again, so we have like we have feedback loops, we have stock, we have delays, we have flows, right? But when does the next big concept comes? Or is this like the biggest concept that like yeah? Then we talk about linear and non-linear system. Again, that was another big insight that I had. But after that, like the rate of insight is decreasing. I want to know like when would the next insight would come, or I should just skip to that page or chapter, right? Just tell me. I do not have time to just. This is one of the most useless chapter. Not because it is literally useless, but she's talking about why systems, why we live with many causes routinely come together to produce many effects. Multiple inputs produce multiple outputs, and virtually all of those inputs therefore have well limited. For example, if there's capital, labor, energy, raw materials, land, water, etc. how good area, good pairs for the workers. So it's like how land influences a lot of things. If you have a position of a of a factory in the right area, that would kind of like cause right labor to come, right, because it would be cheaper for them to actually reach the position they want to reach, right? So it's like if it's too outside of the city, it's really hard for the labor to get there, which causes a high amount of friction to hire new people. So if you would have a hard time getting a good labor, or if you have a company or corporate job, that means you must be inside a city. No one's going outside of a city, like, yeah, or something. And then you must have like good water, or good like water connection and stuff, and basic electricity, I guess. So that's also. But if you do not have that, that causes a lot of problems, because electricity goes off. That means it decreases the production quality and time and stuff like that. So that is another decision that you have to make, or matters a lot. And then you have like security, and how if security is bad, a lot of people will come to the factory and steal a lot of stuff, right? And then you'll have like, yeah, so I'll have small things like like, and then it all depends on the capital that you had. The initial capital is low, which creates a bad factory, which creates bad production. But like, if the initial capital is high, which or good enough, like if it reaches certain threshold, it creates a good enough factory which produces good enough output, which allows you to improve the factory, because now you have good enough capital, which allows you to make a good enough, like a better factory, which gives you like a better production, which gives you like a better, like, yeah. So you see what I'm trying to say, right? With all of this, is like how everything kind of like is interconnected and requires certain sort of thresholds. So like, yeah, we need sunlight, air, water, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Doesn't mind nutrients. Huh. Any given time, the input that is the most important to the system is when that is the most limiting. Mm-hmm. So if we regard the grain to the juice one is available to the grain, he said, if not, pour on more phosphorus if the without each, no matter what cost the floor it has. Carbohydrates, these companies can't keep growing without energy, no matter how many customers they. How good sleep affects, like, I have been sleeping really badly for the last couple of days. Even right now I can feel like my body being tired, like, but how, like, exercise and workout improves health and stuff like that, but then how bad sleep ruins it. So it does no good improving workout anymore if you have a bad sleep. I need to improve the sleep, right? And I'm able to study a lot longer in the mornings, at least for 2 hours or something. Okay, no, I'm just studying for 1 hour and 30 minutes. That's a lot less than I expected it to be, but that is all right. But even with all that less amount of energy that I have, because I've been wasting or not getting enough energy or not getting enough sleep, man, I'm not getting enough sleep at all. Oh, it's time for the lunch. So yeah, I'll be back in 10 minutes, I suppose. Yeah. So if you have a fixed amount of diet, that gives you like a fixed amount of Yeah, right. So how everything kind of like is interconnected and connects, right? So let me just call my mom for a second. If I'll ask if she has made the lunch for me. Right, guys. So yeah, if once that is done, I'm gonna get the lunch in about 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna continue with what the Danella is saying in the chapter. I think when she kind of like gets into like the systems, the problems, like like system transformation point. I think that's when it's gonna get really really interesting, far more interesting than what it is right now. So let me just first check and call my mom. Yeah, guys, I'll be back. So guys, I'm back within 10 minutes, right? I'm such a good person. But okay, I'm not a good person, but then again. Yeah, I'm back with the lunch. Right. Damn, I'm kind of sleepy, honestly. Why am I sleepy, you may ask? Slept for 5 hours only for the last 3 days. Damn. Yeah, I went to like relatives and there was some functions and stuff like that. So I'm gonna eat live, right? Oh, the smell is good. So it's just a poha, which is Indian dishes. It's kind of good actually. Not something close to rice, if you know that. Yeah, do you just thought I left? Never would. No, so we were at the point of yes, I'm purposefully decreasing. So I've decreased the input for some reason. It's because like I'm eating, so I don't want not want you guys to like hear me chew. Mm-hmm. So I think I should get a summary of the book or something. But yeah, yeah. Let's come back to topic, guys. We have to push it through, no matter what. Right. So I mean, I think I should get a summary. Yeah, man. Now that I think about it, we got about not just four concepts. We got non-linearity too there. So that counts as the fifth concept, and these three concepts, I'm gonna just include them as one, not the big ones, right? So that would increase our progress from four to six concepts, right? And now that I think about it, balancing and reinforcing loop also deserves a one concept for them, but feedback loops kind of include both of them, so it's alright because they're a subcategory in a feedback loop. Hmm. Limiting factor is what limits the growth. Hmm. I see. Mm. Sometimes you may even get the most dominant variables right, but you may not get the most limiting factor right. Fuck, that's the insight. Right, so we went Not efficiency anymore. We are at limiting factors. Yeah. Okay. We are limiting factors right now. So, and that is the most important insight that I just had. Man, this is like an insight worth a smile. Maybe it's the most limiting factors is their understanding of reality. Maybe it's their religion and how their religion shaped them, or what their perception related to all of that, or something like that. Hmm. Limiting factor, isn't he given the input? Be the most limiting factor. Maybe it's the mindset. Maybe it's the like. No, but with the inability to do anything with the capital and technology, so that's another limiting factor. Hmm. This is another. The constant what do you call that, oscillations in nonlinear systems. A lot of times there's sometimes breakthrough, there's sometimes like huge increase and things, but there's a lot of times like, you know, a lot of like nonlinear systems like, or systems act like this. I still haven't got the expen today. It's gonna get delivered in about a couple hours now. It gets delivered somewhere between 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. So before that, most probably, so any second now, it can come in any second. Then we have to connect that, but I'm gonna complete the stream first and connect it, and then you'll see it tomorrow. So if okay, I don't know why I'm not I'm not able to draw a straight line for some reason. You know what? Fuck me and my existence. Okay, yeah, who cares at this point? So this is uh this is how we generally have, like, not exactly this. It could go like this. It could go like this. It could be like this. And I'll say, okay, Varik, what are you saying? I'm saying there's oscillation here too. There's oscillation up and down always. There's always an up and down. There's always an up and down that's going on. We can see there's always something up going. There's always something there. It's never like this. Like, it's never stable. It's never a straight line. It's never like that. It's like this. And this is how nonlinear systems act all the time. Is because they hardly ever get stable. Like, they're like this, like that, like something like this. Okay, that just looks ugly, but you see what I'm seeing, right? So this is like a slight increase, a slight decrease, a slight bump. Like, we can see, we can definitely see a slight bump here, like a bump control Z. If I go like this, if I took and press 7 on my keyboard and then I close this up, you can definitely see a bump here and like a small bump again here, but then we have a decline too going on. All right, and then we have like a very small decline here, but then we have like a, and let's say this may goes on to increase, and then we have like another bump going on here. So these kind of things are really common in systems, right? Especially in complex systems. All right, I don't know what I'm doing and why am I even doing this, but right. So yeah, layers of limit around growing plant. So epidemically product technology advance. Hmm. Oh my gosh. Damn. Another become limiting. Yeah. I could stream the rest of my life, but trust me, I would still have zero views. But I've never found a single view from my YouTube content because I never produced a single content. That's one of the biggest limiting factor on my YouTube channel and on my life. Like in dynamic systems, some variables are dominant, but the dominance of variables changes or becomes different, or new variables are added up because dynamic systems are always kind of like changing, right? And that's what screws us over. What people do not realize, the limiting factors, the thing that is limiting the growth may keep on changing as dynamic systems and the condition in which that dynamic system finds itself are constantly changing itself, right? So that's what we got here. My bad sleep cycle for the last few days got disrupted by relatives. Right, so that was a disturbance, which creates delay. That means social obligation is another limiting factor in my studying growth. But not a big one, comes occasionally. Yes, man, this is so true. there would always be limits to replication. Right, because in an environment, replicator creating replications that actually simultaneously becomes part of an environment which allows other species that replicates to become like, yeah, that's, we've got another concept integrated called limiting factor. Oh, I see. Yeah, you don't have slaves, right? I have a slave that brings stuff for me upstairs. Yeah, you should get some slaves. Hmm. Hmm. Well, I am eating, by the way, right now. I'm eating and studying both at the same time. It's a habit. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, हाँ. मैं खा ही रहा हूँ already. Hmm. 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 नहीं, like थोड़ा लंबा है यार. मेरे को लग रहा है थोड़ी मेरे को इकोनॉमिक्स भी पढ़ लेनी चाहिए. मेरे को तो डर लग रहा है. इसलिए मैं वो भी पढ़ने बैठूंगा अभी. तो बीच में मैं थोड़ा ब्रेक लूँगा. ओह, लाइक समर ब्रेक्स के बाद हमारे एग्जाम्स है. हाँ. हम्म. ओह, नो नो नो, कॉमर्स के अंदर भी नहीं नहीं. इकोनॉमिक्स से डर क्यों लगेगा यार मुझे. मुझे भी एग्ज़ाम से डर लगता है यार. मेरे मॉम लाइक बहुत एक्सट्रीम हो जाता है अगर मेरी परसेंटेज गिर जाती है तो. हम्म. क्या? So I'm back. I just had to suddenly leave, but yeah. So where were we? Yeah, ubiquitous delays, right? Okay, I'll just get to washroom to it when I say. Hey, I got that check right. Yep. I wonder when my next delivery will come, but that's all right. We can get back to work first. I mean, I suppose. So we have ubiquitous delay. So we did realize a lot about delays, and there's always a limiting factor that kind of like limits growth, or limit attachment. So for example, it's get if something gets too predictable in relationships too. I mean, that's what happens, right? Because like for example, when you're constantly talking about something, it becomes predictable, right? And when it becomes predictable, it's not uh pleasurable. It's most pleasurable when it's unpredictable, I suppose. Because let's say, for example, if a woman is acting exactly how you predicted her to act, then then it's not pleasurable, right? If yeah, but like at start, it is pleasurable if someone is predictable. But if they're too predictable and doesn't break the frame they're in, it's obsolete. For example, at the start when you have a new phone, it's unpredictable and you're trying to predict, and the predictions turns out to be for the better. So for example, you predicted that the phone would work for 8 hours a day, but it turns out that its battery is good enough to last for 24 hours a day. Right. So that is good. Your prediction error, and prediction error tells you that your expectations were wrong, but the thing is good or better. Does exactly the same happen in relationships, right? But the exact opposite could happen. You predicted that it was 8 hours a day, but it turns out to be just 4 hours a day, and now you're angry. Right, so this is like also how, and what I meant by limits is like each time there's a prediction error. For example, you predicted a woman to act in a certain way, and she did like act differently, for the better or for the worse, doesn't really matter. Just like in the phone example, it could be for the better or for the worse. But if it's for the better, you got a better model. That means after sometimes you would be able to model her, and you would be able to know how she predicts. So when your prediction starts to get correct, that means you predicted that she's going to act in a certain way, and it was exactly true that she did act in a certain way. That in itself is kind of good. But over time, when you predict, and each time your prediction turns out to be good, you're not going to like it anymore because she's too predictable, right? Just like how a piece of code, like if you're writing a code or a drawing or a game, like early stages of game, like level one or level, they're so predictable, right? This is problem. But too much unpredictability is chaotic too. If you can't predict her at all, maybe let's say you wake up and she stabs you in the chest, that's extreme unpredictability. Or maybe she was like lying, trying to commit suicide out of nowhere. That's extremely unpredictable too. But yeah, if you like, yeah, at the start too, let's say she's suddenly abused, and then suddenly out of nowhere she pleads and says sorry, and then suddenly out of nowhere she goes into washrooms and start banging her head, and then she comes back, and then she starts laughing like a woman in love, and then she just to sit down your side and start talking about Pokemon. I mean, that's just too unpredictable. And of course, you don't want to be. Let's just create massive avoidance. Like, yeah, literally like if you just literally imagine what I just said, and if someone really acts like that, no one wants to be around that kind of guy, because not because they are stupid or a fool, even if you just act, even if someone acts like that intentionally. But yeah, I realize with right, that my impatience for the re-establishment of the had something almost communist in it. Make history move ahead in the same way the child pulled. Ubiquitous delay, huh? I think this is another concept. But what was the word ubiquitous mean? And this is act as a limiting factor, because once people become predictable, like, that's as soon as they become predictable, you have a mental model of them. There's no unpredictability, and unpredictability was causing you to actually like them, and predictability was causing you to like them in a good way. If they're unpredictable in a good way, that's you like them. If they're predictable, you like them. But now if they're too predictable, there's no novelty, no nuance, no pleasure, no dopamine. That is prediction error or something. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, in that dynamic, in certain dynamics, people try to show, or a lot of relationships, or human vibes or communication is just about people signaling to each other that they are the part of tribe. They are the part of tribe. Like, I literally believe that, because now, like, why am I connecting all of this suddenly out of the humans rather than economies or markets or things like that? Because, like, yeah, I told you this explains a lot of human behavior terrifyingly well. And because here's the thing, I suppose let me just decrease that slightly. But here's the thing that I'm trying to say is that a lot of people are signaling to reduce uncertainty. And since no one is watching, I'm not gonna actually waste time to explain Friston free energy principle. You're just gonna see my raw thinking. Sanity. Uncertainty spelling is wrong. That means a lot of the things that okay, I'm not able to type fast. Then organism, because it's been a long time since I typed, and I'm like, yeah, tired. Organism. Connecting.
Yeah, that's what I think to some degree, but I do think some of them needs changes. In yeah, time for letters to put in the mailbox. Time for used to tell us when we were modeling a construction or a processing delay. Massive delays. So if you're investing an energy into a system that has a massive delay, you're just psychologically destabilizing yourself. You're psychologically destabilizing yourself genuinely for some reason. Yep. Um, it's like trying to achieve the unachievable or something like that. Yeah. The delay is retooling a production stream and delay in turning over a capital stock. It takes 3 to 5 years to design. Oh yeah. Appropriate boundaries to draw around one's picture of a system. Boundaries to draw one picture of a system depend on this purpose of discussion. So do the important deal is if you're worrying about oscillations that take weeks, you probably don't think about delays that take minutes. The delay may utterly change behavior. Often sensitive leverage points for policy if they can be made surer. Pointing with the delay. Can too fast, it may nervously amplify short-term variation and create unnecessary. Yeah, now that I think about it, aha. Too fast reaction time is a problem. Too fast reaction time is a problem. And too slow of it is also a problem. The thing is, the thing is sometimes you need to wait for the data to accumulate. That's all. Because like okay, because if you are trying to have a system, right? If I do, and there's delays and how those delays out. So if you are trying to create a system which kind of like interacts with the world. For example, I'm trying to maintain a stock. Let's say I'm trying to maintain a stock. Let's say this stock, and if there's an inflow to the stock, there's an outflow. So what comes into the inflow, we need to actually know that, right? Like let's say the stock that I'm maintaining here is like study time of the focus F, right? So if the inflow is kind of like decreasing the focus, or is it increasing the focus? Is it increasing the productivity? Is it increasing like yeah, what it's increasing or decreasing? So I add that, and I take out the things. That constantly decrease. Like I'm decreasing and improving simultaneously. So it's like how do you improve concentration? That means having good sleep, having good diet, I feel like really bad in my stomach, like and having gym or physical exercise. So all of that improves focus because it like yeah, and all of that are able to do that because you have a good sleep, right? I do not have a good sleep right now, and then you have good relationship, good RS, and that means you have like a streaming channel that allows you to communicate about the things you want to communicate about and allows you to express. So you're constantly thinking while you're learning the things that you're learning, right? Overshot, oscillation, and collapse are always caused by delays. Observation. we're gonna stop the stream today.